Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Kanye has continued to go full Kanye. Um, okay, so I'm in the editing portion of the video, and I know what's coming here, and I know how this has gone in the past with Kanye. And it's interesting because we live in a time where the broken are being celebrated. It's okay to be broken if you're liberal, right? And again, I'm not a Republican, but you can see the obvious disparity here. There was all these athletes that were taking off a time. They were saying that they were, having mental problems, right? They were having mental issues, and it was being celebrated. They were being celebrated and called heroes for not performing. There was all these people coming out with issues for years in Hollywood and these places, right? And talking about the mental illness they have. And then there was supposed to be this compassion and kindness that went with it. Well, Kanye has disclosed that he was diagnosed with bipolar, which he calls his superpower. But instead of being greeted with compassion, he has been regularly ridiculed. Barack Obama called him a jackass, and he's been somebody over the years that people have slammed for being a jerk, right? I mean, he had kind of almost like a breakdown on the campaign when he was doing his campaign event where he started crying, and he said his dad had wanted to abort him and that he wanted to abort his daughter. I mean, they got into all these things. He's wearing a flap jacket, body armor, and I mean the whole thing. And so he's done all these events and things. And he's had all these issues where he's gone to rehab and had a public psychological breakdown. And like I said, the New York Post is going to talk about this. His friends are worried about him. It happens all the time. But they still savage the guy, right? Because he goes right wing. He doesn't go left wing. Remember when he was savaged by Pete Davidson and Saturday Night Live for not taking his meds? All these, ways that, he was wearing a MAGA hat. So he's treated differently. It's okay to be broken. It's okay to be, mentally ill as long as you're not a Trump supporter. I mean, all these people, they have all this rage. The people who did the BLM protests and did the Antifa protests and all these, all this rage that was exhibited and tolerated, and, all these, they were justified in going out and protesting. But when the right-wing people do it, it's something else. You don't think those right-wing people are mentally ill, right? You see all these mentally ill people out there, but, there's no compassion for them, right? It's only the certain group of broken, the liberals, the people who have been disenfranchised or been marginalized. But Kanye is clearly somebody who has got issues. I mean, it's part of his genius. I've talked about how, I have a master's degree in counseling, and I went through sort of a liberal, new agey kind of school in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It was a good school, and they had good stuff. Some of it was whack, but the first course that I took, it was like the core course into studying the various psychological models, which is one of the ways that this school was different. It studied all the psychological models in a experiential way where we'd have weekend classes and we would do therapy from that perspective. And so it was interesting because you got like a real life dose of it. A lot of the psychological models are kind of messed up. But the first course I took, the last assignment was creativity and madness. We had to find somebody who was a creative genius and do some presentation on the person's life, how they walk the line between madness and creativity, right? Their brilliance, their genius was tied to their being insane as well, right? Which is quite often the case. Even in spirituality, Babaji, the second master of the Heartfulness system, talked about being, mad for divinity. He goes, I was quite mad for it. There was a period of time, and there's all these spiritual seekers go on these, these spiritual journeys and through life and things, and they brush up against craziness. Everybody does. You have your issues, right? And you have to let go before you have to let go of control, all these things. So there's for people to reach high levels of performance, there's a certain madness to it, whatever it is. Could be obsessive compulsive training habits, right, that go beyond what would be considered normal. I mean, people who are obsessed with making money, even whatever it might be. And so we had to pick various, subjects. And I was talking to one of my friends who does Heartfulness, and he was a chess player. He said, "Oh, you got to do Bobby Fischer." And I was like, "What, was he crazy?" He's like, "Yeah. If you ever see the movie Pawn Sacrifice, but it's way worse than that. Like, that just covers a period of it. But Bobby Fischer had this, his stories of his insanity. He was just this brilliant chess player. I mean, he had, turned it into almost like an art form. But he was so, like, competitive, like people would, across the playing against him, had mental breakdowns. Like, they felt like he wanted to kill him, right? There was just this, insane kind of a person. And people loved my presentation because Bobby Fischer was such a compelling example. But there was all these examples of people I had no idea. I knew their names, but I never knew that there was a mental illness component. And so that's part of it, right? And when Kanye goes full Kanye, it's just a part of who he is. But instead of just taking it lightly, because what damage is he doing, right? He doesn't do any real damage, but, I mean, what effect is he having? But, because he goes right wing, he goes Trump, and he says things that they don't want to hear, they don't give him the break because of they don't give him the mental illness exception. And you can see it by the coverage here as we go through it. Here is Kanye West locked out of Twitter after post about going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. Kanye, is in one of his rant moods. He said this: "I'm a bit sleepy tonight, but when I wake up, I'm going to go DEFCON 3 on Jewish people." I think that was what he was going to say on Twitter. I think that meant posts. The problem with Kanye is that you have to interpret what he's saying, right? It's the funny thing is I actually can't be anti-Semitic because black people are actually Jew also. You guys have toyed with me and tried to blackball whoever opposes your agenda. And so that's the kind of thing that's going to get you banned. Friends, certain Kanye West is in the midst of a psychiatric episode. Kanye sounds crazy. That's his thing. And he has a different way of expressing himself. And, of course, there's a lot of rants. And he's not really aware of the way that he comes across to other people. Or maybe he is, and I don't know what it is. But it's been something that's been there. And at first I used to think he was a fool, which, he kind of is. But the fool can also be like a genius, which is, in his case, there is some like genius stuff that he, that comes out of him. But it's very easy to, for it to get lost in some of the like, being like a buffoon or, like he clowns himself quite a bit. And so he does things that, here he is, hiding in a plant. And he goes on these rants, right? He looks a little bit like he's barely sleeping, spotted with a mystery woman going to dinner. And then there's all this stuff to do with that. And we were with Candace Owen. And so, they want crazy. Like when you say things that go against the mainstream narrative, you're going to get stuff like this, right? They're going to try to make you look crazy. Lizzo brings down the house with epic clapback for Kanye. Well, she didn't actually say Kanye. Here's what she says here.
Woo! I feel like everybody in America got my motherfucking name in their motherfucking mouths for no motherfucking reason.
Woo! Not everybody. Woo! Woo! Now, the big shocker for me here is that Lizzo has that many fans. Her music is not good. Like, I have not heard any song from Lizzo that I would consider a good song. Something that was, like she's just one of these manufactured, when they put on the jacket fit Peter Greg Brady, right? The episode of the Great Brady Bunch where they wanted him to be a rock star, and they made a jacket, and instead of tailoring a jacket to somebody, they had a jacket already, and it fit Greg, so they made him the guy, the rock star. Like, she's that kind of a rock star where, yeah, she can play the flute, and I guess she can rap, but she isn't good, right? But she has a large audience she's playing for here in Toronto.
I'm minding my fat, black, beautiful business. Can I stay here?
Woo, stay in Toronto, woo. Woo, yay, stay there. We want you to stay there, woo. Okay, so that's Lizzo. Certainly not an epic clapback on Kanye because you didn't mention his name. Kanye was implied. Meghan McCain lashes Republicans for championing Kanye West idiots. This man is no icon. He has no wisdom I care to hear. Meghan's hangry again. Somebody give her some trail mix. And so there's that. Her family is connected, by the way. That's why she's upset here. This is poison, and yet another example why this man and his behavior are trash. Conservatives always claim to hate celebrity, but jump and get excited like a teenage girl at a Harry Styles concert anytime if one of them shows our side attention. That's actually true. That's a good point by Meghan. This man is no icon. He has no wisdom I care to hear. Do not look the other way from this statement. It is public hatred of Judaism and Jews, and full effing stop. There's no place for this anywhere. And she said that. Kanye West reacts to Instagram restricting his account over anti-Semitic language. You got zucked. So Kanye wrote this. Look at Mark. How are you going to kick me off Instagram? You used to be my N-word. So here they are together. So that happened. So he's upset at Zuckerberg. Justin Bieber cuts off ties with Kanye for attacking wife Haley. Justin Bieber was in Kanye's biography, whatever it was, the 3-part thing on Netflix. And he was there at one of Kanye's concerts that he does, his church seminar stuff. So, no, not anymore. Elon Musk addressed estrangement from daughter Vivian. Can't win them all. What a great headline. Can't win them all, Elon. So you guys remember this from Biden's last video, or my last video. Not Biden's.
Let me start off with 2 words. Made in America.
Woo!
Made in America.
Those are 3 words. Woo! You can't count. You see no left. Woo! Anyway, so this went around the internet. This is Lauren Boebert, who I guess she's some Republican whatever, right? And she said 2 words, let's go Brandon. And David Hogg chimed in here with a peace sign. 3 words, you're an idiot, right? Because they were unaware she was mocking, and I don't know who this is, and I'm not a Republican person, obviously. But is Lauren Boebert dumb as dirt or just unable to count? That's 3 words. This is a person with a check mark. These are check mark people, right? These are people who are famous enough to have a check mark next to their name. Who wants to tell her that's actually 3 words? Who wants to tell you that you got trolled? George Takai, she can't count, alt math. These are all famous people who got baited in. 2 words, God, you're dumb, and they're actually talking about their president, right? And there's been a change apparently on Saturday Night Live
And it feels like maybe he celebrated with him a little because yesterday Biden
So here it is.
gave a speech at a car factory and opened with this.
Let me start off with 2 words. Made in America.
So they're even starting to make fun of him here. Saturday Night Live is left with, this is their only recourse because their show sucks so bad. And they have to set in on Biden. Now, the first 2 minutes and 45 seconds was about Republicans, or 2 minutes and 40 seconds of this weekend update. They're still going in on Biden here because he's senile, and they've never addressed it.
Wow. Well, let me respond with 2 words. Jesus H. Christ.
Why have a live audience when you can go so heavy on the laugh track, bro?
Biden was then heard criticizing reporters at the White House for shouting questions at him. Questions like, what year is it? And who's the current president?
And of course, it's unbelievably lame, right?
Also, they weren't reporters, they were doctors.
Okay, so they're going in after him for being old and senile, but Saturday Night Live, they still suck, but they have to do this. They have to make fun of this guy because he's so, I've been talking about this for years. Any comedian who wouldn't go after JoJo Magoo, and even more importantly, his crackhead son, when Jimmy Kimmel got on his knees and serviced Hunter Biden for writing a book about his crack addiction, right? As a president's son, who impregnated a stripper named Dallas from Arkansas. And that's just hilarious. It's hilarious every time I say it. Not because I say it, because the sentence itself is funny. The president's son, who is a crackhead, impregnated a stripper named Dallas from Arkansas in New York, right? And then refused to pay child support and, the laptop thing, all of it, right? It's hilarious. This is so much comedy. This is the best all these political comedians, this is their, mecca. This is their big, this is their Christmas. This is their Super Bowl. And they've all just sat on their hands. And Saturday Night Live worse than any of them. And now they have to sort of dabble in it. But they're not going to go full out on Biden the way they've gone on Trump. But this was the cold open. And I just happened to see these things. Somebody sent me the one. And then this was the cold open. There might be more in the show about Biden. I haven't gone through all the sketches yet, and I don't know if I will. But this happened.
Well, on Thursday, Biden said we are closer to nuclear Armageddon than we've been in 60 years.
So, all right, this is a hot topic.
Don't know where to put that in my brain, but I love Biden.
She loves Biden, see? She's a yoga instructor.
Do you know how old he is? Did you know that when Joe Biden was born, we didn't have highways?
It's not funny, but it's still, they're going in on Biden.
That's a fun fact.
Joe Biden was 53 years old when he got his first home computer.
And so they're talking about, him being old. They're focusing on that, not that he's a groper, a sniffler, snoozler, that he always sucked. But they're at least, they're trying to make an excuse like he's just gotten old now. Right? Like he wasn't old when he ran for president. He wasn't old when he was 76 and he was walking off the stage and challenging people to push-up contests and IQ contests and showing signs of dementia. Now he's old. Before he was fine. Now he's old.
Why are you doing this?
I'm not doing anything. Need a sip of that wine?
Nope, I'm totally good.
Video clue, please enjoy this clip of Biden talking about his mental acuity.
How would you say your mental focus is?
Oh, it's focused. I haven't, look.
So now there's a laugh track and they're doing this because it's a new cast and they have no choice but to realize the error of their ways by going full right when you had this wonderful straight line here waiting for them to make fun of.
That's a snap.
Mama, I missed you.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. Well, it's been a revelation now because the Queen's corpse. And so I wanted to say this for Don Lemons. Like I just did a video where Don Lemons walked off of his set for the final time, been demoted, like he calls it a promotion, right? Because he's now on the morning show with sharing co-host responsibilities instead of having his own show, which he's had for 10 years. But then I was talking about how, look at what's happened to CNN. So there was an issue with the so-called fake news, right? There was the Trump stuff, Trump using the term fake news, Hillary Clinton using the term fake news, right? And then the internet, the social media platforms, which didn't want to do this from the business side, were pressured into censoring people. So much so that YouTube had to restructure its algorithms to give you what's called authoritative news. So that when you search for something, you would no longer get truther responses. You would be a truther, and the algorithms know what you want. The bots know what you want, but they would give you CNN or Fox or MSNBC or something like that. And so Google reworked their whole system. Instead of giving you what you were looking for, give you something that you weren't looking for. And they said that they were promoting authoritarian news, CNN being maybe the chief one amongst them. And so the whole social media platforms reworked their system to give CNN an advantage. And CNN was already on TV, cable TV. It has its own, various places you can find it on the internet. And it's like on in airports and all these other places. A huge advantage. A huge being seen advantage, right? Like people don't know who I am. People don't know who our millions of YouTubers are. They have to find you. Like people are finding me all the time, Most of them don't like me, but some of you do, right? Some of you are interested in what I have to say. But I'm not CNN. Like I don't have the advantage of CNN. And all of us on the internet, again, I'm not even a news person, right? I don't have a budget. I'm not a journalist. I'm not any of these things, but I do talk about stuff that, like there's some level of competition between me and, whatever mainstream news, right? I mean, there's a competition between all of us giving our opinions on the internet versus people giving their opinions in official news capacity. And so CNN had all this advantage, money, recognition, the CNN brand. And, people were hating Trump so much. I mean, they even had that. And then social media rigging it in their behalf. And what's happened to CNN? Jeff Zucker gets fired. And the ratings are tanking so bad. They bring in some guy from Stephen Colbert's crappy show, his former producer, to run CNN, right? And he says he's going to make big changes. He gets rid of Brian Stelter, the guy who was supposedly in charge of going after fake news, and he got obliterated, right? Nobody wanted any part of him. And now, of course, they fired Chris Cuomo's as well for some related thing to do with it. I mean, Chris Cuomo's was their number one star. He got the best ratings. And they fired him. And his brother and his time in the basement, all that stuff. And so he was the guy getting the most ratings. They fired him. And now they've moved Don Lemons to the morning show. And there's more changes to come. And so CNN is done, right? It's over. CNN's over. But what about our country and JoJo Magoo? So they forced this guy on us. They forced him on us. Because anybody with half a brain could see the guy was senile. I mean, I was covering this from the beginning, and I, in no way, shape, or form, thought they were going to make him president. He was like drooling on himself. I'm talking about back in 2019, and he was never great. He was always known for his gaffes. I mean, CNN did a hit piece on him years and years ago, which I've shown you so many times, where they call him a liar. They make fun of his groping, his sniffling, snoozing, a gaffe magnet, and just a buffoon. He lied the first time he ran for president. He plagiarized other people's lives, and he told stories about other people's lives, other candidates, like they were his stories. Got caught, had to come out and apologize, and, he's had a bad career ever since. He's been a joke. And now he's senile, right? And now the campaign trail, I mean, it was great. I loved it. The No Malarkey tour, he was out of touch. And they were supposed to be going after the youth. The youth is where the Democrats get their energy and their, that's their base, right? It's a much older group of people that like to be Republicans, but younger people, liberals, you're much liberal when you're in college, much more liberal when you're in college and you're a younger person. And so they get this guy who has a No Malarkey tour, like that's your youth, that's for the youth, right? And they ran on this campaign where Donald Trump was the devil. Donald Trump was going to ruin the world. Donald Trump was going to wreck the world, right? Remember when Donald Trump, he wanted a North Korean style parade where they brought the missiles and military hardware down Pennsylvania Avenue, and there was a time where he said he would totally use nuclear weapons. And I was like, oh my God, like that's a disaster. I thought Trump was, going to be some trigger happy enough there, but he turned out to be not at all like that. He turned out to be much more passive, much more, a non-war person. There was very little military activity under Trump, but still, the left of the media said, and again, I'm not a Trump person. I'm not saying Trump should want whatever. Trump was his own disaster. Trump is a disaster in his own level. Like, you got to understand, Trump hurt all of us in the system, and all of us specifically in the truth community. But we were told that Trump was going to ruin the world because he wasn't listening to his handlers. They're the same guy. Trump and Biden share a lot of similar qualities. Biden may be a little bit worse, certainly a little older. Trump's a little bit sharper, but they're very similar, right? They're both kind of gropey. They're both, say stupid stuff. I mean, they're very, one's a politician, the other's a businessman, but they're very similar in their character. Trump's certainly better, just being, less of a screw up and whatever. And JoJo does pretty much everything Trump does, but a little bit worse, right? But the way it was sold, that Trump was going to ruin the world, right? And all these, all that implied. And JoJo Magoo was going to save us from Trump. That's how the campaign went. And, division, war, our place in the world. Well, how's that going? Well, we're more divided than ever. The one thing that JoJo Magoo, you could have said he would be more of a uniter, because some Republicans like JoJo Magoo. Some independents, they liked him more than they liked Hillary, certainly. But not now, right? We're on the verge of civil war. How's the economy doing? Horrible, right? How did the COVID thing play out? It's a joke, right? Everyone with a half a brain knows that it didn't go the way that they said it was going to go, And then there's a dropping like flies aspect to it. But the big thing is we are now on the verge of nuclear war with Russia, which certainly wouldn't have happened with Trump. They talked about how Trump and Putin got along so well and all of it, right? But if Trump was around, Trump wanted to withdraw from NATO, where JoJo Magoo wanted to bring Ukraine into NATO, which caused this whole problem. So as much as you can say a president's legitimate or not, or, handled or whatever, the policies of the president, what their effect on the world is, if Trump was still president, there'd be no war in Ukraine. There just wouldn't be. Because the things that pushed that war came from Biden and Biden's policies. And now Biden's talking about nuclear war. Like, so we went from a booming economy. It was a fake economy. It wasn't a real economy. It was, it was illusionary, like our economy is all the time. But it was at least, it appeared to be doing well under Trump. And then there was the COVID thing, which ended up being, really a nothing burger when you think about it. I had it, sucked. I had both of them. But, it's, I remember all the flubies, I used to call them flubies, who didn't believe it was real until they got it, right? Or family members got it. So it sucked. It wasn't like, it wasn't the flu, but it was overblown, right? And it, they're dealing with it and the cash grab for the pharma, big pharma, all that stuff. The way it went down. The way Trump got worked and played with his, Trump contributed to that disaster by the way he acted and not telling the truth and, the whole Operation Warp Speed or whatever it was called. Trump got rolled too, right? Trump sucked, but they said JoJo was going to fix it. He made it worse. And the economy's gotten worse. And now we're in the verge of World War III. And these liberals and these people should at least say, all right, yeah, we got it wrong. Like, admit that maybe Trump was as bad as you said he was, but certainly JoJo Magoo has been worse, right? It's gotten worse since he's been in office. CNN, like all of it. Like you guys are imploding. The liberal movement's imploding. And there's lots of liberals who, on the face of it, lots of these people who are, again, I'm not a liberal or conservative. I'm, left-right paradigm person. Like I'm not a binary person. Like they give you two choices. I'm not either of those two choices. Many of you are the same way. And so it's, that's the better position because both choices suck. But, we weren't talking about nuclear war in the last, he said since the last 60 years. Biden has brought us back to where it's worse than it was in terms of 60 years ago. That's my whole life, right? Like my whole life it's been better until Biden became president, right? Our relationship with Russia and the potential for, nuclear war is the big one. Nuclear war would transform, in terms of what I've read about the Whispers of the Brighter World prophecy, some of the things I've talked about here, it's the beginning of the collapse of civilization and the time of abundance, where we are now living in a time of abundance in terms of our lifestyle and our material life. Everything's going to change for the worse. That's going to be the big catalyst, according to, my spiritual belief system, the prophecies that I've talked about. And so what? Like, where are we, right? Think about that. Where are we now with Biden? And these liberals will never admit they're wrong, but they're leaving. They're moving to red states, right? They'll never admit it, but they don't believe any of this stuff. They're threatened. Their suburban life is being threatened. They don't believe in this stuff. A lot of it. They have problems, but their friends believe in it, and they don't want to seem, whatever it is, right? And so they pretend, but deep down they know. Like they know. Most people know Biden sucks, and it's far beyond Biden, the woke culture. They're flipped out by it. They don't want any part of it. They just won't say it publicly. But they know. And now Saturday Night Live is starting to, poke fun of Biden's age, but it's so much deeper than that, right? Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting for the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.